The Ensombl podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. This content is created in partnership with our sponsor, Net Wealth Investments Limited, ABN 85090 569 109, AFSL 230975, and is limited to publicly available information. Before acting on any general advice, you should consider whether appropriate and obtain financial advice from a qualified financial advisor. Ensombl does not hold an AFS license and does not provide any financial advice or services or endorse any general advice. If a PDS or IM exists, you should obtain a copy and review it thoroughly before making a decision.
I'm Patrick, Head of Technology at professional services firm Collins SBA. I'm a former financial advisor who just loves solving business problems and creating better client experiences using technology. Join me each week as we unpack the tech on offer to advice professionals, stay on top of tech trends, and help you break free from the analysis paralysis experience when building and maintaining a great tech stack.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by NetWealth. Imagine a world where you can build a complete picture of your client's financial wealth. With NetWealth, you can track and monitor external bank accounts alongside residential and investment properties. Join the dots with Xeppo, a client data warehouse that connects your CRM and other tech systems with NetWealth. Discover a world of client data at netwealth.com.au/woo. By advisor request, Ensombl has launched an AdviceTech space on its platform in partnership with NetWealth. It's your go-to source for everything AdviceTech related, from research to demos, case studies and insights. To learn how your peers are solving their tech challenges, big and small, head to the Ensombl platform or use the link in the show notes to join today.
Today we're talking automating the back office with Alex Gassner, General Manager at Scale Up Paraplanning. As the name suggests, Scale Up is a tech-focused, outsourced paraplanning business with both onshore and offshore capabilities. What's great though is Alex and the team run a consulting part of the business that automates your processes, workflows and your templates. I really love this as it encourages businesses to fix the root problem of their paraplanning backlog rather than defaulting to an order-taking outsourced paraplanning solution. Additionally, Scale Up are just about to release their AI solution for financial advisors called Paradino to help automate the back office and do things right the first time. I started by asking Alex what the oldest piece of tech he still owns is and whether he still uses it.
Yeah, I had a bit of a think about this, and I'm someone who tries to upgrade my tech pretty frequently. I mean, my iPhone just sort of died 2.5 years in, and literally just got a new one yesterday. So I think the oldest bit of tech would probably have been kind of the PS3 or the PlayStation. That still gets a bit of a run. But I do have, this is probably a bit old school, but I have a watch. And I'm a bit of an old school guy with a watch. I use my Garmin obviously for my training, but outside of that, I do have an Omega pocket watch, which was passed down from my grandfather or even great-grandfather. So that's over 100 years old, if you classify that as tech.
Oh, definitely. That's I think we've had a shovel and a wheelbarrow as an answer before, so I think the pocket watch definitely counts.
Very old.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And in a similar vein, it's sort of going around obviously clockwise. That's incredible. And that's still working, is it?
It is still working. It does need a service, which is expensive.
Yep.
Sending it back to the Swiss watchmakers. But yeah, it tends to stay in a box, unfortunately. It's one of those items that is a bit of a heirloom. So
something to be cherished. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I guess moving into the sort of today's world, is there maybe one or two ways that you're using AI either personally or in your work life? I know the answer, but tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So, work-wise, we've built our own AI summarization tool, client meetings, which we can go into a bit of depth a bit later. But for me personally, I use a lot of the strategy part of my role in the business. I use AI for. So it's coming up with a real strong kind of marketing plan, for example, based on a new product launch, what those 3 months look like, what metrics I should be focused on. I'm not a social media expert. I'm not a marketing expert, but asking and prompting AI to give me the plan and the outline of that plan, and then what to execute in each week, even down to the type of posts, how to engage them, what the call to actions might be, and then also what metrics should I focus on, right? Website visitors, maybe the pages that they're landing on, all that sort of stuff I didn't really have much of an idea about. So I use AI a lot to give me an outline on a strategic piece or part of the business that I may, have some clue about, but certainly not be an expert in.
No, that's great. And I think we talk a lot about blank canvas anxiety, and it feels like AI is really helping with that, like to get that framework and the structure. And you're probably, 60, 70% of the way there, and also starting with the end in mind, at least with those examples.
Absolutely. I think you can spend on strategy, and trying to be innovative and thinking innovatively. I think AI does a good job to, eliminate or compress 3 days into 3 hours.
Yeah, perfect. And I guess, segue into compressing days into hours, Scale Up Paraplanning, Alex, what's your origin story? What does Scale Up Paraplanning do, and who do you help?
Yeah, maybe a bit of a background. My background is heavily focused on paraplanning, right? Started in the industry as a paraplanner at Midwinter, actually, about 14 years ago. And funnily, that comes full circle as well now with the AI build. Spent some time there, was a paraplanner then at an A&P aligned firm, and moved into a few different areas of financial planning. One, the product management side. I helped, train offshore resources, about 30 of them for Rubik on Australian legislation, and they were the BAs and the testers of software. So in order for them to understand the output, they needed to understand the strategies behind the output in the software. Was a practice development manager, so help businesses scale and grow their business, financial planning businesses. So what were they using in terms of tech stack, and how was that best used within the business, roles, change management piece, buying and selling businesses. And then roughly about 7 years ago, I started the outsourced offshore paraplanning. There was certainly a need in Australia for that. We replicated the same model here in Australia for those practices looking for the onshore offering. Obviously, no difference between it except for cost. Quality is still the same. You're delivering the same outcome for the advice business. So yeah, and in the last probably 2 years have been heavily focused on the AI piece. We certainly see a massive opportunity with AI and trying to automate particularly the back office processes. So how can we get people within the business focusing on more high value tasks and eliminating the mundane, repetitive nature of the back office? So right now we're servicing financial planning businesses, usually with sort of 5 advisors or more, and even engaging at that licensee level to really support the outsourced paraplanning and admin and research function.
Nice. So are you sort of seeing there with that sort of minimum requirement or the gauge there of the 5 advisors, that's where you get the volume where it makes sense to engage someone like yourself?
I think so. I think there's a couple of reasons why it makes sense at that point. The one advice man band, there's certainly like a plethora of, opportunity for them to become efficient and effective. They're wearing every hat. They have significant pain points, and it's super, super difficult to scale and grow. However, sometimes they don't necessarily have the budget. Sometimes as well, and to be fair, you want to do things your way. When you step into business and you're young, you do want to have the finger on the pulse on everything, and you sort of want to have your regimented way of doing things. So we still support advisors in that fashion. Like, we do work for you as an advice practice, and so we don't mandate the use of any processes or anything like that. But we just find that with a little bit of volume, you do see other pain points pop up, which we can help a lot with. And then there's a budget to actually allocate towards that and heavily kind of like invest with both time and effort.
Yeah,
which you just can't do as a single advice practice.
Yeah. So what you're sort of alluding to there is you're not just sort of an order taking, outsourced firm where it's like, here's my plan, integrate into our process, into our tech stack, and just get it done by, as soon as possible. So hours and not weeks. Yeah. But what you're saying is you will also go down that journey of really consulting on what does your current process look like and how can you help? Do you mind sort of talking about that and what that sort of looks like when a business engages you?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of that is when a business comes to us, typically it's because they have a bit of a backlog, backlog of work, or the quality of their existing, paraplanning solution is poor. Their production of advice, if they know and they've sort of more deeply looked at it and, at a more deep level than service level, can be expensive. So we start actually with almost like an informal audit. So it's asking how do they currently do their paraplanning? How do they currently do their document production? and how does information flow from team to team or team member to team member, and who handles what. When they come to us, we understand that there's a pain point, right? And there may be multiple pain points. And sure, we could plug in a paraplanning solution that produces advice documents and sends them back, but does that solve the pain point is the question. So probably about 2 years ago, we started that consulting side of the business to go, let's have a look at your tech stack currently. Not with the idea to replace everything or add complexity to it, but let's look at how you currently use what you've currently got. Are you leveraging it to its full capability? And if you're not, can we, in regards to what you're trying to achieve? And if we can't, then we obviously make recommendations according to that. But the goal is, if we can make their information flow to us be more accurate, faster, we can produce the SOA more accurately without, back and forth, which means they get the statement of advice back they presented to their client earlier, they get the cash flow earlier. It's a win-win for everyone. So we certainly, and I love getting stuck into kind of like the processes and understanding. It's so unique in terms of the businesses that you see. They can be the same size. They can have the same processes internally. They may have different sizes of teams, but you can even see some team members are doing the same process differently, or they may be missing certain parts of it. So the way that we kind of go in, again, is we take a real visual approach. I'm a super visual guy. If it's not it's not painted for me on a picture, I don't understand it and I don't learn it. So even internally, I say, if it's an email, I want it in pictures. So we develop a real diagram to understand their existing process all the way from, I suppose, initial kind of lead of the client into prospect, initial meeting, paraplanning, presentation of that advice, the implementation, and then the review, right? So each of those, I guess, processes then have subtasks that are assigned to that process to make it work effectively. So we go in there and really document that super intricately and detailed to understand what it currently looks like. Because once you have the current picture, you can then say, right, here are the steps that we're missing. Here are all of the parts or subtasks that are done manually, and here's the opportunity for automation. And once we get to that recommended piece of what that process change looks like, we can then say, well, if we automate these 10 out of 20 tasks, we think we can save X amount of time, which is probably going to give you an ROI of X. So we never come in as a paraplanning firm to go, right, let's just hit the ground running and go, because eventually that kind of blows up if you're not looking at what the actual pain points are and try to fix those at the same time. Yeah.
No, that's really great intel. So I just sort of picked up on, so when a business reaches out, you sort of mentioned that they have a backlog. So I assume most of the time they're coming to you and there's a fire burning and they're like, can we fix this issue right now? And there's that balance of you going, yes, we'll do this Band-Aid solution, but longer term, we actually need to solve this issue permanently and stop this fire from happening again in 3-6 months' time.
Yeah, that's right. And we tend to engage for that reason on a bit of a transactional basis to begin with the group, right? So we'll go, we understand the building's on fire. We've got this one hose that can probably put the fire out, but that's not going to have rebuilt the house, so to speak, to use the visual analogy. Yeah. So we'll engage on a transactional basis. We can get that backlog out. That helps them with cash flow, getting cash flow into the business, which again allows them to have budget to go, right, let's look at the actual problem now to fix. The templates are pretty poor or they're not dragging the right information through. Can we redo that? Can we kind of code them out up to be a little bit more effective and efficient?
Yep.
And then just look at the deeper processes to go, look, there's clearly, a problem here. Even from a staffing perspective, are staff doing what they love doing? Change management piece in the consulting side of the business is paramount. People, sometimes don't want to be doing things, and that typically can be why certain parts of the process are being skipped.
Yeah. And I think too, like I'm just sort of picking up on, if you are addressing that fire now, I assume you're getting to know the existing process through living it as the paraplanners are going through that and going, why is this required? This is too many steps, or this is too little steps. As you mentioned, there's the real focus is on the automation side of things, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And once we have gone through that sort of initial clear the backlog, it's then about, well, typically our clients then understand the quality that we deliver to, the way in which we work. We understand them a lot better as well, and the way in which they work. And then we can kind of formalize an agreement to go, well, we have offshore resources, full-timers that we can allocate to the business to make sure that we've got this covered. They understand all of the problems that we were fixing. And, at that point, it's really kind of just off and running.
Yeah, awesome. And I think, you showed me before we hit record the sort of diagrams and the flow charts that you're referring to, or the process mapping. Yeah. That's really, really comprehensive and really nice to look at. Like if you're mapping out every single step of, current workflow and then proposed workflow, do you often find yourself maybe recommending other workflow tools just for that side of things, or do you try and embed it into the way that they're currently doing things in terms of their current tech stack? How does that look?
We don't want to strip out existing solutions unless we have to, right?
Yeah.
Taking a tech vendor or tech solution outside of an existing process is a big change. There's a whole raft of training and all sorts of stuff that happens. So we don't want to do that unless we have to. So again, like if there's solutions that they've currently got, their CRM, their financial planning tool, or whatever it might be, works and we can get what we need out of it, then great. But if it doesn't, then there just needs to be a significant change. And so it's then about how big of an impact that will be on the business, right? Because there's a whole bunch of training that comes, I guess financial planning software being the main one. A lot of clients come to us typically complaining about what their financial planning software doesn't do. And in all honesty, that most of the time that is just a lack of understanding of what the software capabilities are. And I think the financial planning software providers have typically done a bit of a poor job in training and upskilling their users and paying attention to what they're kind of wanting. So often the software is capable of doing the things that we require it to do. So it's quite rare that we end up stripping big solutions out. Those are big changes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I'm just sort of thinking on the flip side, like in our business, I mentioned as well before we hit record, heavy Salesforce users where you can configure it to your heart's content and literally anything becomes possible. So that's obviously a benefit. But then on the flip side, anything becomes possible. So then people start to request anything and everything because instead of working in constraints of a tool where you can get creative within those constraints and make it work, you just try and go, let's add another field, let's add another step, and it can quickly turn into this Frankenstein process that's really only suited to that one person or those couple of people without the full business in mind. Well, that's my experience anyway.
For sure, absolutely. And the diagram that I showed you previously, I mean, we have calls with the advisors. Obviously, they're seeing the clients, and we talk about how they do their current job and functions, or what they like, they don't like, etc. We do the same with every support staff member, right? We then ship out that diagram and the process to each one of them to get their feedback back. And then we have a complete picture of, from the back office personnel point of view, from the client facing, the client experience, and the client journey. That's the only way that you can really understand what's going on. So,
yeah. And I think just the power of having team members see where they're involved, at what stage of the process, like should give them great clarity at the bare minimum of saying, I'm involved in, the 7 out of 9 processes that we do in this business. And you can really see where, I assume you'd be able to see where the bottlenecks are too, like in terms of this person's responsible for this and also this. And you can really consolidate, work out what's the minimum number of people that need to be involved in this process, not involving everyone just because we have them as a bum on a seat.
Absolutely. I think one of, the key objectives there from at least the business owner's perspective is to try and get those advisors back into, revenue producing tasks.
Yeah.
And do they need to be touching all of these non-revenue producing, mundane admin type tasks? And we still see a lot of that. And so it's also trying to allocate that away into the back office and have someone take ownership of that in the back office. And then that's when we look at automation. Yeah. And we're getting a lot of questions in terms of, Copilot and the AI solutions that are out there as well.
Yeah. No, I'd love to sort of unpack that a bit more and sort of lead into if you had maybe a couple of examples, Alex, of maybe a consulting client where they were and maybe the general problems that they were facing and what you sort of recommended or changed in their business, maybe just at a higher level.
Yeah, definitely. So I went into an existing or past client actually who, as part of that diagram, we actually put a table together, which, in bold says problem statement. right? So the issues that you're facing. So I might just sort of rattle off a few of those areas. One of them was, a lack of reminders for specific tasks that were happening. So they were using a workflow management system that was, a task manager for managing task flow, but it lacked reminders for specific tasks like filling out certain forms during a rollover or claiming a tax deduction when you're doing a certain strategy, which caused staff to overlook those situations, which then caused the business to have like a liability issue, right?
Yeah, breaches. Yeah.
There was also a lack of structure. So lack of structure in the workflow management tool itself, and what happened subsequently after one task had been done. Data integration challenges, obviously that is an issue as old as time, so to speak. There were manual FDSs, manual fact finds, client reviews. They'd previously sort of attempted to set up, in this instance, it was threads for existing client reviews that weren't successful. They were breaking. SharePoint was being used as a data retrieval facility, but finding documents in the right areas inside of SharePoints became an issue. And then there was also a complicated way in which they were storing information. So it became very complex to navigate their internal files and folders, for instance. And that's a real 101. There was also different processes across the team. So there was a lack of structure and understanding of, in this process, you as this staff member need to capture all of this. So basic checklisting, really. And so we went in with a view to try and automate as much of that as we could and also help staff understand where their involvement was. We actually spoke to some of the staff members as well in terms of their training and their capability and where they would like to see more, effort put in. Some of them didn't quite entirely understand the workflow management system that they were using and again, the capabilities of it. So it's pretty hard as a staff member to, complete everything to the high standard that an advice business requires and wants if they don't sort of, have full understanding of what the software can do and where to do it. So training is a big part of it.
Yeah. No, that's a great example. And clearly just a lack of structure, a lack of rigor, and obviously, as you said, bringing everyone up to the same playing field when it comes to education and being informed. And even I do not think that's uncommon at all in terms of if there's no, or a lack of structure and lack of rigor leading to different processes for different advisors, like people in the same business, in the same division, doing it different ways. Like that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, we had 4 support staff looking after 8 advisors. I think I mentioned this before we hit record, but they were all doing the exact same process for the advisors, right? But they were all doing it on different templates for the same outcome. It was crazy. So, you need to have some sort of aligned structure and repetitive nature to it to then go even like, can we automate it or not? And is everyone on the same page doing everything the same way? Because if you're not, somebody can be taking 8 hours to do something that someone else might be taking 2 hours.
Yep. No, amazing. And then obviously we're delving a lot deeper into not just the paraplanning side of things, it's the full back office, as you're alluding to there. That's just really changing the game for the whole business.
Yeah, from prospect all the way through to review meetings, right? And everything in between.
Perfect. Awesome. I guess I wanted to, before we sort of chat about your AI solution, we mentioned sort of Copilot before and AI tools. What are some of the sort of questions you're getting and how is that sort of being, bundled into the strategies or the recommendations that you're giving to your consulting clients? Where is that sort of slotting in? Yeah,
so I suppose to answer that last bit quickly, we see a lot of inquiries around Copilot for sure. The main way that we integrated that for the same client that I was referencing before was just automatically creating a PowerPoint presentation off the back of the documents that were being produced. So for them, taking the client through a PowerPoint presentation was essentially the way that they presented the SOA. We used Copilot to produce that PowerPoint presentation. So big win for them. Every kind of practice is unique, and I think every practice at the moment is one probably focusing on those file note taking and meeting summary tools. Yeah. That seems to be a real red hot topic at the moment, which is fine. And they're absolutely a better way of capturing file notes, a better way and more comprehensive to then transfer that internally to the right team member for them to digest it, understand the client. there's a lot of pushback at the moment, I guess, from the paraplanning perspective. I think this has been going on for about a year or so, where paraplanners think their job's going to be taken. And I think we're still quite a distance from that. There's also, I suppose, the difference between where the technology and the capabilities are today or tomorrow or whenever that might be. And then also, how quickly the advice industry wants to adopt that.
Yeah.
Because if no one's using it, the changes aren't coming. So, yeah, I think at the moment there's a big focus on the AI, I guess, call summary, meeting transcription, file note taking part, in which we feel like we have the kind of domain expertise and, your general sort of out-of-the-box tool might not do as good of a job as the very domain-specific tool can. So we feel like we have a competitive edge there. But I think, AI isn't automatically producing the product research component or automatically filling out forms for implementation. It's not producing the full SOAs yet, though we are seeing tools coming out. So the UK, I know, has a tool out there that is automating suitability reports. So it's coming. I have no doubt about the fact that it's coming, and it's only a matter of time. It's not here today.
Yeah. No, that's really intriguing. And I think just on that PowerPoint example, just to sort of delve into the detail a little bit, is that with using Copilot, so are you throwing in the SOA Word document and then getting a consolidated view, or is it really just putting in, here's what I want to discuss into the prompt, and then it will spit out the sort of SOA
you
presentation?
2 ways.
So, okay.
But you could drag and drop the document in.
Yep.
And obviously in PowerPoint, have Copilot produce the slides.
Yep.
Again, there's probably post editing things that you need to do, the colors, etc. But templating is the way to get around that.
Yeah.
Essentially. So
perfect.
But you can also, AI, right at the beginning, sort of, I don't know, maybe even a year and a half ago, it was all about prompting. And you saw a lot of these LinkedIn posts about how to prompt correctly.
Yeah.
That is actually fairly accurate. It does come down to the prompt and the way that you assign the AI a role, or if you ask it to do everything all at once, or if you start to break it down by task by task by task. And so it's pretty unique, and it's quite funny because those viral LinkedIn posts that got really annoying,
yes,
kind of were pretty valid.
Yeah, it's finally the crypto and the Web3 experts have shifted to AI, and they've finally hit the jackpot with the actual accuracy of content. I'm with you. Like it really is just sort of communication 101, like rubbish in, rubbish out, and just being really clear and specific on what you want and how you want it to look, if relevant, and also like not giving it too much data. Like, for example, I'm trying to use the API version of OpenAI, and I'm obviously very conscious of security and not trying to put data that we shouldn't be into it. Not that it's being used to train models, but just from a general perspective and where it's stored. But if you give it exactly what you want it to analyze, the response is way better than giving it all that data plus 100 other data points, because it'll just look at all that. So I'm totally with you. The prompting and the being really specific, really clear, especially from like an output perspective too, in terms of, tables or bullet points, really, really clean at doing that. And like that is the stuff that takes paraplanners, sometimes hours to, format. If it's in Word, if that's your document management tool of choice in terms of document production, and you're formatting manual tables and bullet points, it just takes so much time. Absolute disaster.
Yeah. That's not high value.
No. And you sort of mentioned before, like it's not at that stage yet where paraplanners should be sort of quaking in their boots in terms of it's coming for your job. But I think even when it can do those things that paraplanners are still doing manually, there's still that human overlay. Like we still need to, at least legally, be going through that human oversight and overlay and just making sure that we're not sending out things that are just factually incorrect or wrong.
Absolutely. Totally. Human in the loop, for sure.
Awesome. And I think that the file note stuff too, like in terms of it's such a quick win. You don't even need, I believe, Copilot I think you just need to be on the right version of Microsoft Teams. I think it's Teams Premium from the point of view of getting a really...
you have the automatic transcription and recording.
Recap. Yeah. And that's really helping us. We're using another tool as well to help with our file noting. But once you have that comprehensive file note, that's then when you can start to use AI to then transform that into the action items or even like strategy papers, all that sort of stuff. That's really cool.
Exactly right. Yeah, and that's kind of Paradino is what we're calling the platform.
Okay.
And we're starting with AI file note meeting summaries, and fact finding, right? So having all of that summarized from the transcript. Now, once you have that data, we then want to push that further down the process into automating the paraplanning request form, right? Again, the advisor's spending time putting this together, collecting information from other places to input it into instructions for the paraplanner to then understand what to do. And so we see that as kind of like version 2. Try to define, obviously capturing all the fact-finding information, defining what the scope is, the advice in and out of scope is, and then pushing that information into a paraplanning request form.
Yeah.
And then you're starting to look at stuff like initial research. Can we front run, I guess, things that happen later, further up into the process at the beginning to expedite things, right? So the paraplan has everything they need. They don't have to go back and forth with the advisor. The handover's been amazing. They have everything that they need from a data accuracy point of view as well. And then we'll look at, document construction and what does that look like to really kind of optimize the paraplanner.
Yeah,
they'll be there from a technical point of view to construct the advice. But I think as these AI tools develop these different capabilities, I think the paraplanner's role will definitely be much more of a technical. I'll put the kind of strategy together and all that sort of thing, and the advisor will be purely relationship based, and everything in between will really just be checking the AI to make sure it's all still good and accurate. I think that's where the biggest efficiency gain will be for paraplanners.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. So just to unpack that a little bit more, so you're working on a separate AI solution in addition to your business, but will that will be, tell us, will it be standalone or baked into the Scale Up Paraplanning solution or a bit of both? How is that sort of going to look?
We'll definitely use it internally. Okay. I think for us, our clients, the ones that we align to, definitely see obviously that, we've been in AI and we've been trying to sort of find out and figure out the solutions.
Yep.
And so there's an interest there from our clients, and they're absolutely the first ones that we'll try and offer this to. We're an outsourced paraplanning provider. We see the issues. We see very high quality and very low quality paraplanning submissions. We see some emails going back and forth 10 times, delaying the process by 6 to 8 weeks. It's really cumbersome. And so we see the pain points, we see the problem. We have a huge interest in what the capability of AI could be and is. So we'll develop obviously the solutions on the back of that and then release it to our clients. But obviously this is kind of where it comes full circle. But a guy I met back at my first job at Midwinter is who we're working on in terms of a developer.
Yeah.
To build this. So yeah.
Awesome. No, that's super exciting. And I think, really what you're saying is we're doing it right the first time. It's eliminating at least the double and triple entry that happens with paraplanning requests, but also eliminating the sending it back, back and forth, etc. That's really
there's always
exciting.
Stuff that's been forgotten.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just the human brain cannot remember 500 different data points, right? Whereas AI can. And so if it's there and it's been documented, the data is there, the AI can absolutely summarize it in a way that, information won't necessarily be missed. And sure, there'll need to be some sort of human checking it to begin with, but eventually as we get confident with it, that just becomes another kind of like cog in the wheel.
Perfect. Yeah. And are you starting with the sort of general big bad SOA process and then branching out from there, or what's the sort of approach when it comes to the sort of comprehensive back office sort of tasks and responsibilities?
Yeah, so really what we're starting with is, and if you kind of reflect back to the diagram I showed you, it's that initial prospect all the way through to paraplanning having everything that they need, right? Yep. So you're talking definitely about data. Can we make it more accurate? Can we improve the client experience, right? So fact finding at the moment, pretty lame.
Yeah.
I get sent a link to go in, log in and enter the data, or I sit down, have to go for a meeting and paper-based, like pen and pad. It's just a terrible client experience, not involved at all. So how can we improve that? How can we get the data more accurately, more at the start of the process? So we have everything that we need to then ship it to the right person in the business to then produce the advice, right? That's what we're looking at to begin with. we'll then move into the paraplanning, the actual document production of it, and then also have a look at implementation, right? So getting the right data into the right forms, shipping that to the right providers, that's a little bit more complicated process.
Yeah, definitely so many more stakeholders and forms that change on a daily basis in terms with regard to fees, etc. And obviously legislation as well. But no, that is super exciting. And I mean, we keep referencing that diagram. Hopefully we can maybe get
I might be able to give you a copy.
Yeah,
I feel like I have to give you a copy.
Yeah, definitely for the show notes for sure. Apart from hopefully seeing you in the dedicated Ensombl AdviceTech space powered by our pals at NetWealth, Alex, what's the best way to progress the conversation with you or Scale Up Paraplanning?
Yeah, I mean, I'm typically quite active on LinkedIn, not recently. That ebbs and flows. That's just one of the things I need to automate. At least reminders for it. I think reach out on LinkedIn, send me a message. Once we get that site up and running for Paradino, have a look, have a search. We're keen to have a discussion, absolutely. And another person to reach out in the business is Jay Beckton.
Okay.
He recently came on from a sales perspective. He's done offshore outsourced paraplanning before, and he's great at what he does. So reach out to Jay Beckton or myself on LinkedIn, probably the best.
Perfect. Paradino sounds awesome. So yes, Alex, I've really enjoyed the discussion today. Thank you so much for your time, and see you soon.
Thanks a lot, Pat. Appreciate it.